Terms like measurement, ROI, ROO, ROE, these things are getting thrown around like crazy. I think they're big terms. I think they're easy to say, but I think a lot of people are unsure where to start. Everybody knows what ROI is, right? But like, how do they deliver it? What does it look like? What do the numbers, what does the reporting look like? What are they exactly reporting on? So I think this stuff gets thrown around a lot. And I think it's kind of like a big, hairy, scary thing that people are just not 100% sure how to do. And look, when it comes to measuring, I can tell you this: measuring and quantifying results has to happen with events. It is something that absolutely has to happen and is a must. As event marketers, even as partners like ourselves to event marketers, we all have to start to create business cases, and we have to start to be able to deliver quantifiable or measurable results to tie into the greatness of what events are. Okay. So let's talk about the problems at this point. What are the problems that we're dealing with here? So when it comes to creating ROI, when it comes to creating measurement, these are some of the stuff that I see as challenges: long sales cycles, multi-touch points, throughout the journey of your customers, an enormous amount of lead sources, the idea that people go to events because they always have, the idea that people go to events to support associations. It becomes challenging to track when you have like big departments, big divisions, large geographies. Like, the bigger the company, the more complex and the more challenging I see when we talk to people about what are you tracking? How are you tracking? Where's the information going afterwards? And then in the sense of trying to then get it all back from this one thing to understand what these outcomes have become. Leads are not always the full picture at trade shows and events, right? It's very broad stroke. A lot of people just want new leads when they go to trade shows, and that's fine. But again, not everything. One of my main thoughts that I'm having is a lot happens at an event, at a trade show, host events, user summits, conferences, whatever you want to call it. A lot happens. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of positive. And it's the reason why events have stood the test of time without exact dialed measurement. It's because there is this whole big ball of energy of good that's happening. Now, on the flip side of that, again, I talk about these things where we've talked to people and they say they exhibit because they always do, they sponsor because they always do. And I think that's kind of the negative side. But I think we all understand from being at events, there's an energy, there are positive, there are good things happening. And if those weren't happening, events would not have stood the test of time at this point. So let's talk about some of the, I guess you'd say, symptoms of the problem, or let's talk a little bit about what ends up going on because of all these problems. Well, the event marketer is in a tough spot. So event marketers are stuck on constantly trying to execute. Now they're being asked to measure, track, work cross departments. You have sales and execs questioning events, questioning sort of outcomes. Are these worth it? Is this the right move for us? And I think what's funny about that is a lot of time executives are the ones that when they get pushbacks from people on their team about why are we at this event, they get the FOMO. They're the ones that's like, oh, no, we have to be at this event. Yet they're the ones that are questioning it, and they're the ones that are cutting budget, giving less resources to it, right? So a bit of a dichotomy there. Huge marketing spend. No lie. Everybody knows trade shows and events are a really big marketing spend. So that puts more emphasis on it. It makes it easier for people to be like, we're spending all this time, we're spending all this money, we're spending all this energy on this. So what's coming from it? I think we've gotten to the point where because there's not really dialed measurement, we get lost in the sense that we're not putting exact strategy. Because a lot of times I think you need to measure stuff to understand what strategy and kind of what place to go next. So as I start putting all this stuff together, one of the things I'm thinking is okay, what's a better way here, right? How do we do this moving forward? How does somebody get started? Because when you look at the event program of a major company, it is probably one of the most expensive, with the biggest carbon footprint and the least measured. That's a problem waiting to happen. So because they're the most expensive, when you have economical, geopolitical tough times, inflation's high, it gets questioned. When things are really, really good and, the budgets are not in question, well, then it leads people down to the carbon footprint path. That's when the sustainability talks peak their head. And then because it's least measured, there's really not a ton of backing to be able to go to put the business case forward. So here's kind of what I'm proposing for people is at the end of the day, when you're going to events and you're deploying capital and you are spending company resources, time, energy, it is a big lift to put on a 30 by 30 trade show booth, sponsor a booth, bring in the team, run a host event, right? Bring in 300 to 2,000 people, whatever it may be. It's just a huge lift. I think we have to gain an understanding of what's actually happening at these events. I think we have to really dial into those positives and those good things that are like, why does everybody love events? Like, why do we love going? Like, what are the motions? What are the actions? What are the things? What are the positive energy, positive vibes, sales vibes? What are the things that are happening? Right. And typically those always go down the path of dialing into some form of brand awareness or what I would call pipeline impact. Companies want sales when they're deploying this capital, right? So a lot of these positive energies, these relationships, these meetings, these dinners, these networks, these people you meet, these partnerships, all these things come down to how are we generating revenue? Are we churning the wheel at events? So I think about it like this. If you are looking to start to measure pipeline impact or you're looking to measure ROI, here's where I would start. I think these are some things that are happening at your trade shows and at your events. Okay. So we are getting new pipeline. When you go to events, you put new pipeline into your pipeline. You see deals get closed at the show. You see deal stage acceleration. You see post-show deals closing, right? The amount of people I talk to that go to these shows and they either have pipeline in there or that gets closed after the fact, a week or two. It's a direct impact. They're just not 100% sure. Old customer resurgence. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody at a show that maybe you used to work with? Maybe there was a new contact. Maybe they went away from offering something, but you end up meeting them, talking to them, spending time with them, and then all of a sudden they become a customer again. Low volume resurgence. You have a customer that spends a little bit of money with you, but you see them at the show, they come over to your booth, or you see them at dinner, passing in hall, wherever, however, you end up having a conversation, you reconnect, you rekindle, and then all of a sudden their sales with you double at some point. And I'm not saying it's just because of that interaction, but that interaction has merit to it. And it happens all the time. I've seen it just within our own business, let alone our customers' business. Okay. Window shoppers who get into conversion, you start thinking about bigger companies that are marketing all over the place. And these large enterprise companies, they have a lot of window shoppers. They've thought about working with them. They've checked their website. They've looked at the pricing sheet models. They've done all their internal homework. They've not really submitted anything. They've not gotten a demo, but then they go to an event and they end up at a dinner. They end up at an activation. They go to the booth, a lunch gets sponsored, a dinner, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden they convert into a deal. All right. Average sale increase when you're running into your customers and you're building a better rapport, you're fostering a better connection with them. After the fact, either upselling or just building a better relationship, those people end up spending more money. Referrals, you get referrals from when you're at events, right? So that's a whole nother avenue. Solidifying partnerships. This is a huge one. People still like to solidify large partnerships in person. They like to sit face to face, look each other in the eye, and have conversations. And a lot of times they can solidify partnerships happens at a trade show. So what is that worth? Where does that go? Indirect sales. You start talking about distributor models. You start talking about companies that have multiple avenues or multiple channels for sales. What are those touch points like at a trade show? So that is a list that I've compiled of things that are happening at trade shows, in and around trade shows and events. I think the first step is identifying which is happening for you at which shows, right? I think all your shows are different. They all vary. They all can be some big, some small, some more boutique shows, some just these large enterprise, these just massive conferences. But what is happening at your shows? You have to dial in and know that. It could be one of these things. It could be just new pipeline getting pounded, right? And that's awesome. And that's the single thing. But you have to know which is happening. Because if you know which is happening, then I think you can start to understand how to track. So here's one of the things I want to get into on that list. So let's say we give you this list. It's new pipeline, it's closed deals at show, deal stage acceleration, post show deal close, old customer resurgence, low volume resurgence, window shopper into a conversion, average sale increase, upselling, referrals, solidifying partnerships, and indirect sales through a distributorship model, right? So you have all those things. Well, I think the first thing that you need to be able to do, people say ROO, tracking objectives. Are these leading or lagging indicator? That is such an important piece to understand. You say, okay, new pipeline. Okay, well, you need leading and lagging, right? So leading is a number that predicts the future. So that could very well simply be your leads. That could be your leads at the show. What are the leads coming in? And that is a leading indicator to the new pipeline that's coming your way, right? Whereas lagging could be the conversion rate on those leads. But as you start to identify which of these are going on, you have to build leading and lagging measurement style like objectives for all of these different things.